deepest truth is that it is you that is leading you. Think about that. The higher inner self wants to guide you to the most desirable outcomes that will bring forth the deepest levels of soul satisfaction and nourishment for you. However, you don't want to listen to you. What's that all about? Consider that humanity is under deep levels of mind control and deep levels of conditioning, so much so that even our conditioning has been conditioned. And we've been programmed to just straight up not trust ourselves and defer to an outer authority. Now, this is conditioning and indoctrination that's done at many levels within our society, but we've been taught to put our trust in government, corporations, Sky Daddy. This type of deep psychological conditioning, it sustains an experience that someone outside of you always knows better, that someone outside of you is always more capable, and that someone outside of you will come to be your savior. Elikash Veritas, greet you in oneness and truth. So our question today is, how do we listen to our guidance? Better yet, how do we amplify the voice of our guidance, resulting in living in greater exaltation? So this first requires a level of mindfulness that's at a level of intensity, of astuteness, that turns the volume up within you to meet and match the frequency of your guidance, that which they reside on. Now, although I say intensity, this is not to be confused with forcing something. The word intensity is used to describe and amplify the strength, the concentration, the enthusiasm towards being receptive to that which has been regularly muffled or distorted and dampened due to the internal and external interferences that's running within our inner and outer world. As adult humans, although our biological age is several decades old, we are still psychologically operating to that of an adolescent. Now, somewhere around the ages of 10 and 19, that's the kind of mind we're running. It's the same attitude of not wanting to be told what to do. That same energy is exhibited to our spiritual guidance. We think we know better. We think we have all the answers to life without having lived it from a cosmic point of view. Simply put, the drive of our ego and unwillingness to accept correction, it keeps us from being on a receptive frequency of our guidance. Now think about this. What is the experience like when we're trying to talk to somebody who already has their mind made up on what a thing is? You're communicating with a brick wall. Welcome to the experience of our guidance. This is not to demonize independent thought. It most certainly has its place. However, when we look at the track record of our life, how is this working for us? I'm sure there's a number of loop patterns that you know of that continue to cycle back into your experience. However, the ego keeps tricking you to make the same sabotaging choices over and over again because you feel you know better. And with such a disposition as this, all potential communication with our higher guidance, it ceases to exist. And because of this, there comes a point within our experience of suffering where we got to ask ourselves, when will I allow myself to explore a different choice that really moves me into exaltation? Not just something that feels good in the moment and we regret later, but something that is right or correct and in alignment with the aspired to version of ourselves that we hold in our minds. Now consider that there's a path or trajectory that has been plotted out by you. And the you that chose to incarnate into this experience, there's markers that have been set along this trajectory, and there's certain objectives to accomplish and a number of ways to get there that are factored in. However, consider that your soul ran a simulation of some sort and projected probabilities and potentialities and objectives within the incarnation. And this is done prior to incarnating back into the game of life. And then we've mapped out this plan while inside the game of life, you would sustain a connection with yourself, providing directives and directions of the least path of resistance to accomplishing those markers. This analogy could be akin to a wireless controller in a game. The self existing on higher planes is giving inputs to the controller. And these inputs can be perceived as insights, intuitive moments of connectivity in its highest form, direct audible communication, with the right, correct moves to make based on the markers of the achievement. However, there's a caveat. Now, the conditions of this relationship are predicated upon you, the character in the game, to be both receptive and willing to take action on the input that is coming from the higher you behind the controller. However, it's like most of us, we have the controller unplugged, Bluetooth disconnected. And as a result, we wander around aimlessly in the game, repeating the same levels, dying analogously at the same boss fights, having to repeat the same battles over and over again. This is what life is like when we are cut off from our higher guidance. Now, I want to be clear when I say guidance. This is a broad brushstroke term that is used for a variety of different beings that are ranging from many classes and existing on various dimensional planes. However, they all have your highest interest in mind. So I want to speak about the pull of life attempting to correct itself. So as a remedy to sabotaging of the self and not listening to our inner guidance, Of the Sun shares with all of our students to call forth the frequency of correction. And in principle, what you call forth must come. And as a being of frequency, energy and vibration, adherence to a particular frequency will induce influence over our predominant thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors, thus changing our personality and our overall reality. Now, what has taken place when we call forth the frequency of correction is a tuning of oneself to a vibrational state of being, of receptively seeking and welcoming feedback, and or for our guidance to improve one's actions or our understandings. Now, this action increases the receptivity of our mind to this higher feedback of information relating to that which requires adjusting in one's thoughts, emotions, behaviors, resulting in growth and straight up better outcomes that are more aligned with the agreement that you made with yourself. Now, this does require having a level of humility and willingness to allow yourself to be led. But you know what? The deepest truth is that it is you that is leading you. Think about that. The higher inner self wants to guide you to the most desirable outcomes that will bring forth the deepest levels of soul satisfaction and nourishment for you. However, you don't want to listen to you. What's that all about? Consider that humanity is under deep levels of mind control and deep levels of conditioning, so much so that even our conditioning has been conditioned. And we've been programmed to just straight up not trust ourselves and defer to an outer authority. Now, this is conditioning and indoctrination that's done at many levels within our society, but we've been taught to put our trust in government, corporations, Sky Daddy. This type of deep psychological conditioning, it sustains an experience that someone outside of you always knows better, that someone outside of you is always more capable, and that someone outside of you will come to be your savior. Now, this at the deepest levels creates these negative programs and constructs that perpetuate behaviors that are rooted in powerlessness, enslavement, or worthlessness of the self. And in order to keep you subservient, the beings that have rigged this game are deeply invested in you to continue looking for an authority outside of yourself, the true self, the self that is a fractal aspect of the all that is. The biggest fear that these outside anti-life forces have is not having your attention. And it is our attention that gives the life force that animates them. The moment we pull back our attention, the moment we pull back our power from the outside authority and return to the inner guidance, is game over. The parasitic manipulation ceases to exist. Now, let's talk a little bit about trusting guidance. Trust in self builds trust in your guidance. Your guidance is you. It's not something that exists separate from you. Although dampened, you have a direct connection feed and are conduit for the insights provided from your guidance. But in order to trust yourself, this requires a high level of self-worth. However, as mentioned earlier, our self-worth has been significantly diminished through the influence of society at large, so much so that we've been conditioned to question and doubt the voice of truth that arises within ourselves, thus creating a construct where we subconsciously don't even believe ourselves. So how can you find value and that which you believe to be a lie. Do you see the spiritual, psychological trickery that's being played here? Now, if you're thinking to yourself, how can I learn to trust myself again? How can I trust me, which will help me trust my guidance? Here's a few basic steps that you can take to do so. 1, limit outside influences. I want you to consider that everything outside of you is you or attempting to take real estate in your mind. The best way to lower the outside influences to lower engagement with the outside influences. So for starters, significantly lowering your intake of media, especially mindless media, fear-based media, other forms of media that project negative influence that results in a limiting perception of yourself. It's all noise. Consider it static. Now you, my friend, are a broadcaster and receiver, and consider that it's challenging to receive the signal of your guidance if you're constantly running multiple stations that will also interfere with the station that your guidance is on. So spend some time in silence. Allow yourself to be with you or with self so that you may more clearly observe your thoughts uninterrupted. So clear those airwaves as much as possible. 2, breath. This slows down our perception of time, and it heightens our extrasensory perception. And in this state, we're able to allow more to come through. We recommend 4-6 breathing, and if you find that counting your breath is interfering with your ability to be receptive, simply just sustain long, comfortable inhales and exhales, which will help sustain the heightened state of receptivity. And when you're doing this, your awareness literally expands, allowing for you to pick up information from your body, the guttural, the heart feelings and sensations that will translate into thought, providing insight into the world of frequency and the unseen. 3, energy hygiene. Much of what dampens the connection and flow of information from our guidance is the negative accumulation in our fields, which are significantly dampening the assimilation of the information that is processing through our field, our biology, and our minds. So the more debris that's in our field, the less receptive we are. There are a variety of different ways to reduce energetic interferences, such as grounding, be around nature, or simply using powerful clearing techniques to clear oneself. And for more on this, you can refer to the video from the Tarvars of the Sun YouTube channel explaining a variety of powerful yet practical energetic clearing practices. 4, listen to the first thought. Now, it's understood that that first initial thought is the most accurate thought. It's pure thought that's stemming from the divine guidance. And any thoughts thereafter is usually going to lead to doubt and some loss of true intuitive understanding. Spiritual guidance is often communicated through this gentle nudge or an immediate thought, rather than this loud or detailed plan that's being projected. Hence why steps 1 and 2, they are prerequisites to priming oneself for the receptivity and subtle intuitive whispers that are coming through. As we practice building this muscle of receptivity and taking action on the first thought, the voice shifts from a whisper and an audible level of clear, concise, directive thought. And through this process, one becomes familiar with the voice of their guidance, the frequency, and most importantly, what truth from within feels like and what it sounds like. And at another level exists having full-blown conversations with our guidance pertaining to the insight that's being provided. However, all this starts with the desire to willingly allow yourself to be corrected. So to recap, call forth the frequency of correction as a regular practice. Begin to build value in self through trusting self. Use the 4 simple steps to take or make yourself receptive to your guidance. Limit those outside influences. Consciously breathe deeply and regularly. Keep yourself clear with energy hygiene and take action on your first thought. Now, if you watch this video up until now, it's likely that you've gained some value, and to express your value, I encourage you to give the video a like. Do all the YouTube things. Subscribe if you want to tune into more content like this. Share this with someone who resonates with this information. Until then, keep that light body lit. Continue to radiate just like the sun. I'm Catching Veritas, everyone. Honor, respect, and gratitude.